Well, that's great. That's great. My name is James Davis. I'm the Chief Innovation and Evangelist of Kasm Technologies. It looks like I'm also joined by Ray from Kasm as well. I've enjoyed the conversations that I've been listening to and kind of seeing what's been going on. I think we're a little differently positioned over all of the different technologies that I've seen so far today. We would be a wrapper around a lot of those based on the type of data and the availability of that type of data that is being utilized. But I made our presentation to kind of follow along in a couple of key areas. One is how to leverage Kasm AI as a Kasm AI enabled tools. Really talking about both local AI versus open AI type solutions. We'll talk about how we use an AI as an example to build out some workspaces for ourselves. And then more importantly, I'll go through a couple of other local examples and demos that I can show with how Kasm uses this with AI projects. Okay. I don't know if we can, let's see if I can mute Carlos. Thank you. So a little bit about us. We are a group that came out of what's called Project Maven with the Department of Defense. And it was specifically around building out a solution or a platform for today's world where, the military knew and started leveraging AI, everything from ML, natural language processing, inferences, computer vision, a lot of different characteristics that work with AI, and needed a platform that they could actually do and deploy and leverage that, again, with both people who were nation state people that we would work with every day and, ones that we may not want to work with tomorrow. Both on the both offensive and the defensive side of the equation, making sure that we didn't get, bad packages in as well as didn't do bad packages out. It was all about protecting a lot of data, a lot of CUI data. Again, this is where we came from, why you don't want to have certain characteristics that come into play as data gets lost or somebody's moving data out. And so we're built specifically to protect that type of data. A lot of data that is being used for our platform is a wide range of different people who leverage or trust Kasm. A lot of it's around, again, everything from technology, the timeline that you have, and the trust that you want to provide inside of this environment. I want to talk a little bit about how Kasm technology works, and I think these are the main high levels where with Kasm technology, it's different when you think about Kasm workspaces than your traditional VDI implementations or your implementations where you're thinking about an enterprise browser positioning. The way Kasm works is it actually works more like your regular everyday TV. Where you can have a browser, that browser can actually have a strong identity that it communicates to, whether it should be SAML, IDP, leveraging tokens, leveraging OIDC, depending on what you want to actually get accomplished there. And from there, it actually spins up ephemeral devices like a virtual machine, a regular application that you may be leveraging, or even a SaaS application or a container-based application. Again, in the past 3 conversations that I've seen so far, as a good the neutral carbon neutral one, that's a great app that would be behind something like a Kasm environment, or the PARSec, the one that actually did a lot of the computer vision capabilities like Stratovision. Like a lot of those would be applications that would be delivered out to other individuals with just a browser to be able to access the particular data without actually giving access to the data path, right? So if you're utilizing data that's in store, or again, really inside of an environment that you don't want it to be externally exposed to, this is a great example of how you can leverage Kasm to access those type of resources that are in play. Again, the way that we work is the actual container is where the actual infrastructure is being spun up. So this virtual machine container applications are pushed up either on premise, in the cloud, depending on where you want to actually have it be spun up. It's what's actually accessing the data, and the only thing that's getting sent back out to you to the individual browser is just the screen. So the viewing, similar to like a movie, is what you're actually accessing from that particular perspective that's out there. Okay, so I usually stop there, and it's all good with trying to get people to leverage the technology. Let's see here. So in the chat line, we'll start our first demo. So in the chat, I actually put a link that you can leverage. This is the same link that I'm pushing right here. And this link should give you the ability to get to a Kasm desktop and actually be able to play around with the technology right off the bat. And that's really the idea around this, is that I can give you access to internal resources, environments, applications, things like that. I can actually put controls over it. So whether it's that you only have access for a certain amount of time, or you only have access based on who you are. Identity, again, could be a big factor. And then I can control what's happening, whether you can have data loss prevention, whether you can actually upload, download. Perhaps I don't want you to, print off the actual inventory information, but I do want you to be able to see it and be able to leverage it from that particular perspective that's in there. Or again, you could actually hit this install PWA button, and it would actually put an icon on your desktop, whether you're Android, iOS, or Mac, that you would be able to access these particular type of things afterwards as well. Where again, now when I have a full desktop environment, again, I can actually open up PowerPoint. I can actually do the work that I might be doing in PowerPoint just like normal. And when I'm done, the biggest benefit is that these are all destroyed at the end. So there's not a need for it to stick around. There's no additional need to continue to have no additional need to have access to that environment after this point. And so therefore it doesn't exist anymore. Similar if you were thinking about putting out laptops to individuals or trying to give access to third-party contractors, this is a much easier way for them to start leveraging their own hardware without having to send them out a separate thing to install on their hardware, to make sure that they're in the right device posture to get in play. Any of those things are kind of outside the norm from this particular perspective. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Because now I'm going to go into a little bit more around some of the use cases around AI, how we leverage it, and some of those kind of capabilities. But I want to make sure everybody has a general sense of the technology that we're describing. Okay, I see no hands up. Hopefully the link worked for people, and I'm going to move forward.
Oh, looks good. I took the PowerPoint. Cool. Oh, by the way, somebody asked earlier if we're sharing the PowerPoints, and yes, of course. I'll share the PowerPoints. I'm going to break these up. These are being recorded. So I'm going to break these up into sections, and then I'll send all of the links to all of the recordings. And then I'll probably send one email with all the different PDFs.
Cool.
So just that.
Cool. All right. So I will go forward. Let's talk a little bit why these things are important. Again, we start describing use cases that leverage things like local AI and things that use things like OpenAI. Again, OpenAI, the company, great example of OpenAI that we're just really describing, but in general, it is around leveraging external sources or cloud-based resources that are in the cloud versus using local-based resources and local things that you can actually operate internally. We can provide a lot of different capabilities by keeping the data private and secured in some of those environments, and then other areas where you may actually want to use it for different reasons. Now, again, I personally, I did a lot of work in school and so forth around AI. And so we sit around and we start thinking about how to actually make AI problems, right? And so an AI problem is one of the things that you really have to, get deep into your business to understand how any of these past people that you just saw or ourselves really make a difference inside of your organization with what you may actually utilize. And so I usually break it down in three key functions, whether it's a utilization constraint, a business constraint, or a technology constraint, when you start looking at the type of AI problems that you can actually go after and solve. One of the problems that we had when I first got here, as a good example, was that we do a lot of documentation as code. Again, the way that we would leverage this, it would be the same way that we do all the documentation that you may do in your businesses to provide information to your customers, and the way that they consume that information from your customers, because of the way that I write it, may be entirely different. Right, so developers who write, other developers understand them, just no questions asked. Regular people, not so much. Business people, even further out, because it's trying to get something done. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to create something that would actually take our existing documentation and actually build something that we can actually give to customers so that they can ask it natural language questions and actually start really solving their own problems. So just to kind of demo that piece right off the bat, you could actually go to our Kasm documentation. And again, our documentation, if you were to look at it, it's got a smattering of different how-to guides and so forth on how you work with our platform, how it all works. And it's pretty overwhelming if you think of it from how do I get started in this environment where I don't know anything at all from this particular thing. Whereas that's why we built in a Kasm GPT, which uses a custom GPT, which is using an open AI environment that's leveraging our private data, being our documentations, specifically for this conversation. So it's only going to answer the things that we need. And you can say, like, how do I enable, pseudo credentials? A key thing that you may want to have done, which is, I want to have access to certain things. Not only will the ChatGPT look at our existing data, but it will actually then build the necessary pieces of code that you may actually just drop into your actual Docker containers and so forth to get access to it. But it also pulls where it pulled that data from. So you can actually go watch the video of how that's all interacting and all those things are set. So this is just one example of how we actually leverage AI or open AI type systems with our own systems to better enhance your capability to work with us from that particular characteristic. Let's move on. Another piece around that is understanding, again, this type of AI problems that exist out there, and the AI problem that that existed and how you fix those type of things, and what comes out in the end of how that all worked out. The second way I'm going to talk about is, again, another AI problem, is that we had a situation where we were building something called Workspaces for Oracle. And many of you, if you're using Java development or something out there that's utilizing a Java IDE, or perhaps using data science or data scientists that are needing to be leveraging the systems, well, of course, we don't always have the perfect people on staff to know everything about every Java piece or every coding piece or all the things that may need to happen so that you could have a good workspace that you could leverage right off the bat. So we're behind an 8-ball, but we needed to make sure that we were able to get this particular platform out. So we enabled something like AutoGPT, which is a local-based GPT, and it's a local-based processor that you can utilize to actually build workspaces for us to actually provide to the customer a Java-based environment that would be really good for them and how they would actually leverage it from that perspective. Okay, so I'll give you a little link on that particular conversation right now. And let's see here. So this is how we actually build some of those AI workloads inside of that particular environment, in which, again, using something like AutoGPT. AutoGPT, you have to give it a goal. You have to tell it how and why you want to actually leverage this particular thing. What it ended up doing is it took us over 14 prompts. Somebody here was talking about this earlier, which is everybody's not going to be a prompt engineer. Absolutely. It takes you, a time to actually get the right verbiage, the right conversation, and to have it leverage it so that it actually does it in the right way. In this situation, it took prompt number 14, and prompt number 14 gave it enough definition of what I was looking for that it could actually help and drive some of those conversations. One of the pieces that was the magic of number 14 is I explained to it, I needed it to go find out how to build these type of things first before it actually comes all the way through and actually starts building out the pieces that are in play. And so that's actually what it actually did for me, is it actually went out, built it, and understood how the system was working, ends up building out after over 200 plus commands. And again, this is it talking and understanding from the data that it's received whether or not this is important. And it started building these particular workspaces for me in this overall sense of the word and how it all worked out. And then in the end, it tells me how to deploy, how to put it all in the right space. So I'm able to use this more in an agentic aspect of AI versus just your regular, piece. This was a way that I actually did all the work, had it figure out how to do the work for me, and help me walk through on how to actually pull that in. Now, that's how that actual system works. This is the actual system in actual play. So now, out on Workspaces for Oracle, there are actually different containers that were created for this service that are specifically created by a AI agent that actually built this workspace, and I'm able to use to do, again, data science, data management. I can ingest multiple pieces, especially when you're thinking about like Jupyter or any of these other type of application sets. And again, this was created by an agentic AI to kind of develop this for us and use this from this platform. Now, I'll spend a little bit of time on Workspaces for Oracle. Workspaces for Oracle is a system in which you can easily start this service. It is the ability, if you're looking to move your development, move remote access, things of that nature, into a cloud-based platform, you can leverage this to do that particular capability easily. Okay. Now, one more step. So again, a lot of different barriers to trying to get it in play, but what it did is it helped reduce the time and energy spent on trying to build out those appliances and let me free up resources to actually get it done without them actually having to deal with it. We ended up building out all those Java-based workspaces and was able to easily move forward and building out different efficient workspace creation techniques. Okay. Lastly, and this one I'll go into a couple other demos that we're going to start leveraging, which this is important when you're thinking about all the local AI, why that's in place. So imagine that if you're trying to do AI steady, right? If you follow along with the techniques for Gartner really breaks down AI projects and movements currently in two major flows. One is an AI steady company or an AI accelerated company. And an AI steady company is one that's using, under 4 to 5 projects that they're using for AI, and they're doing it primarily to gain productivity capabilities. So something like Copilot, or how I'm leveraging something like ChatGPT or such in those areas to drive productivity are a lot of times that they're utilizing that piece. When you think about Gartner, they consider you an AI accelerated company. It's utilizing 5 or more projects to actually use AI, but you're trying to gain something beyond productivity. You're trying to gain something further in the business or further leveraging some of these capabilities. And I'll give you a good example of when we incorporated that with a ChatGPT interface for one of our customers who was saying, hey, I'm a law firm, and I want to actually get a GPT type interface for my data, and my of course my legal library has all these capabilities that I don't want to actually give available to every open AI person in the way. So they were able to instead use our environment, build up a custom actual GPT environment that's spun up via a browser and can be used by multiple different individuals at the same time. to kind of do this type of thing. And so I will kind of show you what that looks like. So imagine, again, this is a web-based. I can basically launch an AI text generation UI. Again, this is going to be utilizing a GPU on a piece of hardware that's on-premise, so I can actually leverage this multiple times for multiple users, the same GPU and the capabilities, versus spending money on tokens for every single question that's being asked through ChatGPT. You can imagine the investment of AI that you're actually leveraging, instead leveraging it localized inside of this environment. And this is just a workspace that's available that you can actually leverage and download yourself. Again, full AI or GPT interface. And you can ask it, all kinds of different questions that you may want to ask it, and it's going to give you back the most relative information that it has for based against that particular large language model. And again, a lot of different models exist out there today that you can pull in, everything from llamas to auto GPTs, depending on what you're trying to get accomplished. You can use those particular pieces for those models to get access to. Okay, again, start new chats, just like you would normally do everything else, but it's inside of a localized environment. I'm not paying a consistent basis out, and I'm able to get actual data in that same way. You can see you can install it as a PWA on someone's desktop, or if you're really wanting to get access via your cell phones or smartphones, you can do that just like normal and not leave a footprint, not have to worry about leaving data or anything out in those environments set out. Another cool example I like to use is even when I'm thinking about something like Stable Diffusion. Here again, we're leveraging an internal system to build out this environment that's in play, where I want to actually get access to utilizing Kasm, so it's spinning up a container that's going to have access directly to the GPU. And since it has access to the GPU, it will allow me to run a Stable Diffusion piece where I can actually see, as you can see here, I can get onto the GUI. And I'm going to give it something really cool. Those who are familiar with Stable Diffusion kind of know what I'm doing. Just kind of giving us a little space to see what could come about. Let's see here. Typically, you got to give it something really interesting to want to put in play. In this situation, I'm asking it to compare and build a George Seurat and Pablo Picasso type application together. And once you cue that prompt, this is using the GPU in the back end to actually create and make the right combinations together. And as you can see, it's actually thinking about what it will actually produce. And here in a second, after it goes to its last point, it will actually create us a one-of-a-kind Picasso George Seurat type application for a picture. Again, this is just leveraging something like Comfy UI to actually showcase how it works inside there and what's inside of that piece. Let's see, something like that. Try this prompt. Okay, that's why I'm in. I'm going to get that there right now. Let's cue it up. Okay. Let me pull in a little bit more of this data here. There you go. So she got a little, Michelangelo uh, turtleish face going on there. But again, this is just an example that as all this data is here, I could download it, I could upload it. Again, this machine does not have this type of GPU inside of it. That's actually the way it works out. It is entirely
what do you? I appreciate you trying to make it AI, but let's stepping back out and saying, okay, for the platform, it's a secure platform. Who is your main customers, and why do your people usually use this?
Yeah, so our main customers are typically, again, I'll kind of jump back over to that for it. A lot of our customer base sits in leveraging a VDI or needing to have training or provide data out to remote access to users. There's a couple of different use cases. Oh, so that's not even the same presentation. So,
yeah. And by the way, I appreciate you making this AI focused, but honestly, yeah. I think that's not, I didn't really bring you for AI. I brought you because anybody who's doing AI needs security to some degree to protect a lot of it, right?
Well, so, it's a little bit more than that. So, it's that when you think about something like generative AI or any of those type of workloads, having them in a containerized space is the really important things. It is security for sure, but it also helps it so that it can't just run amok. And I think that's where, one of the things that we did with like Claude or computer use AI or agentic AI is that it puts guardrails on it naturally without having to implement different guardrails. If I were to do this on my own machine, as an example, it actually has that characteristic.
Wouldn't it have been great to have that for SharePoint 15 years ago?
Right. But to your point, everybody is moving towards a browser-based scenario, and having better activity against the browser itself is key. Delivery of the application sets, whether it be desktop as a service, whether you're looking at training and collaboration, remote access for individuals. We actually do a lot more in cyber threat and research, which is another really invaluable piece of this conversation. Security and privacy, and then of course web isolation. All those drive different characteristics from our platform, but we were actually created from an AI perspective to chain, if you will, a lot of the algorithms and inferences that would be leaving the property, or that you didn't want to leave the property, if you will. Does that make sense? I saw.
Yeah. Who it is? I'm sorry, I had a glare. I was just moving. I got a glare everywhere, I guess. All right. So, okay. So I'm trying to help relate this to everybody else. Who are the typical people who you would sell to? Is that, are you the infrastructure IT manager? Are you what role do you typically goes, hey man, I want this product?
So typically, it focuses on two major things. It's the people who are looking at reducing their total cost of ownership at the end user point of the conversation. People who are like, I'm ready to move to something like a smaller infrastructure at my endpoint, like a Chromebook, or I don't want to have to buy brand new GPUs for all my environments to actually work. Those type of people that are looking at a total cost of ownership, if you will. One second. I'll give you that piece of it. This is primarily where you see most of our market pieces.
There we go.
In which it's about total cost of ownership is usually the top one. The second one is higher levels of security, right?
Now, real quick, I know that I know I got healthcare, and I know I got pharma on here. I've got a few other things, but I know those two are on here for sure. Do you have healthcare clients, and what's the advantage? And do you have pharma clients, and what's the use case for that, or what's the reason they typically use it?
Yeah, so your healthcare clients would typically leverage us because they're utilizing like mouse and cows or thin clients at all the little desk stations for patient care. Instead of having to deal with the current iterations that they're working with, where they're dealing with different clients and updates, they could move all this to a browser-based solution that actually would use those same thin clients or those mouse and cows the same way. But what it would do is lower the total cost of ownership and reduce the security threat that they currently have with those devices all day, right? So most healthcare deals with a lot of ransomware, they deal with a lot of malware, and those are all enacted upon the endpoints or driven in by an endpoint or through a browser in any of those situations. We present ourselves in the ability to stop that without having to change the workflow. Allows the people to do what they need to still get accomplished, but automatically securing the environment because it's ephemeral and it's read-only. So it's not that we change the application, it's not that we're doing anything set, it's that we're changing the way that you're interacting with the application in a way in which it makes it easier and more secure from that perspective. So, and then when you think about like your pharma, a lot of those have a lot of environments that they have to have in cross domains or in specialty locations where this presents its ability to give you a path to data that is going to be more secure. And it's outside of the actual, if you needed an air gapped environment or if you needed access to certain FDA-based workspaces that can be held for 7+ years, never have to be changed. These are the type of things that we would sit in front of that they would give them access to get for those things. So a lot of it's around, again, lowering the total cost of ownership of what's in play, but then also increasing the security of what's in play as well by delivering the automation and stuff that we deliver.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So we got about 8 more minutes. Do you have some more you want to show? Like I would tell you to highlight the top 2 or 3 things you got left, and then we'll go from there.
So I got a person asking, how
Yep.
does it
Yep.
work with your peripherals? And your peripherals, the way that we actually work out is typically anything that your browser can get access to, we can see and get access to. So oftentimes it's webcams. It's again, if you're using tokens, we can do pre-session capability to get in. Now, if it's something like I need to have a smart reader or a USB device or something of that nature, we actually give you the ability to deliver this utilizing the RDP section as well. If I can give you an example of that. So we'll allow you to actually switch over to an RDP-based client, and it will actually pull down the RDP clip and it actually writes it into a JOT token. And I will click that button and move this over so you can see it all happen over here. Hopefully, nope.
By the way, I had to leave before when you first started. Did you mention that this was the DoD? I mean,
Oh yeah.
okay.
So I did want to mention it is a DOT based platform, but now as you can see, I'm still running the same session, but I'm actually using the localized RDP client to allow me to get access to any of the other peripherals that I would need to get access to. But it still follows along the same characteristics of the session itself. So it has the same DLP. It's still controlled just like normal, and it's still deleted in a ephemeral way, just like normal as well. And yes, absolutely. We did a lot of different solutions that we've built out into the environment itself. There are different images and places and things that you can leverage. When you think about the number one things, it's about whether or not you have two major initiatives. One is I was again following along with like net carbon, some of the neutrality as an example. Then the endpoint is the biggest place where you have carbon. And so reducing that is a big scenario that you actually can take into play by having to either use existing machines or by reduced types of machines that are having to reduce carbon that's in place there. When you start looking at how I deliver some of these particular solutions, it's anywhere. It's for anybody because all they need is a single URL. So it makes it extremely viable or easy to actually have third-party interactions and so forth, where you want that recorded, or you want to make sure that it's basically it's a trigger that they have access to it, maybe a conditional access. Those things can all be taken into consideration with this platform, and you can do it at a lowest cost, meaning I didn't have to buy 3 different conversations. If I have a single desktop in play, I've got to buy CrowdStrike or 10 other EDRs that are on that machine, because that's a requirement from that perspective to keep it safe. It's not a requirement that we have based against the browser. And again, in most situations, again, it's not protecting the browser because it's not protecting the user from doing something stupid. We actually protect the user from doing something stupid, so they can click into what they want to get to, but it would have a web filter on it automatically, or it would actually, since it's in a container, it can't break out to the endpoint. So a lot of that capability is built into the way that we designed this particular system.
I see the chats are getting answered a lot of the questions while you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should bring on? What did I say? What did I see the D? Let me say, there was a word I was looking like. The de-windification. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
When you think about some of the capabilities, right? It's about really the significant value, right? It's that first level we can bring in value by browser and workspace containerization easily. Sorry, that brings you down with that right piece of first step. The next step is really application containerization. A lot of our customers, to the point where we're thinking about a school, where they have a lot of older Windows applications or legacy Windows applications, they're actually able to use a system called Wine or Bottles to move that into a usable Linux container. And so they're able to then really move off and into the Chromebook section and reduce that overall endpoint cost dramatically, and what they need to from an educational standpoint easily. So there's application containerization, and then lastly, it's resource utilization. We work on any platform. So we work on an ARM-based platform, we work on a bare metal platform, we work on multiple different hypervisors and multiple different cloud environments. So naturally, you can choose how you want to deliver that application, and you can choose it based on the lowest cost associated to it as well. So we build in a lot of different savings that we can provide to you and still provide that same level of support, digital workspace, and digital innovation that you're looking for as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? All right. Well, that was right on time. That's great.
Cool.
Oh, you're out of McLean?
Yeah. We we're hosted out of McLean. Our teams are global. I happen to live in actual California, so I'm on the Pacific Standard Time, and again, a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, most military applications, they use us quite heavily because of the type of delivery that we do. And so if I could imagine you walked into NASA and you saw the microwave and you were like, hey, other people need that microwave. What are you going to do about that? And they said, oh, if you believe so, James, if you think that people can actually use that microwave out there, let's go take it out to the consumers. And so over the past couple of years, we've just been bringing this out to the consumers to actually start utilizing and really take value from it. And that's, I think, really important.
Okay.